So pretty much every time I load up GTA these days, I host a playlist with staggered starts like this, because I figure if you want to do normal racing then you can join literally any other lobby. Now the idea of staggered starts is really simple. You select any car you want to drive and theoretically you should have a chance of winning, because I use Bruffy's car testing spreadsheet to generate appropriate advantages for the slower cars. Now, outside of a competition which I'm Awesome 0044 hosted and my playlists, nobody else has really bothered with this, because as you can see from the total race time of 4.5 minutes, it's always taken a while to set up. Until now. The track we were driving on there is called Gambling Addiction. This is it right here, and as you can see it's 1.74 miles long. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the Staggered Start Calculator created by Pardonius, or Pardonius, however he wishes to be pronounced. So you can adjust the slider to 1.74 miles, it's also in kilometres for you Europeans out there, and in this race we're doing 6 laps in SUVs. Click Update and you'll receive the alphabetised list of all the SUVs. Now if you're hosting a race, quickly look around at the starting grid and select the vehicles that you see. What did we have in this race? Habaneros, a Dubster 2, more Dubsters, Grangers, a Baller LE, Huntleys Contenders and an XLS Armoured. Now this is fantastic because that doesn't take 4.5 minutes to set up. Let's imagine that took 1 minute to organise and you want to start the race at 1 minute and 20 seconds. Move the race start slider to 1 minute 20, click submit, and just like that you have some base times for a staggered start race. But then we have to make 1 or 2 final changes. For example, in this race we had Murphos in the Contender, Drubert in the XLS Armoured, and myself in the Huntley. If we three wanted to catch Smithy in the Habanero, sure, we could put our fastest laps in every single lap, but that only works in a non-contact environment. In this race we have to get past all of the Dubsters, the Grangers, the Baller LE. That's difficult to pass on a straight and that's going to cost us a lot of time. So I recommend taking off 2 to 6 seconds, depending on how many cars there are and depending on the drivers, from the final cars. So the Huntley, the XLS, the Contender. I wouldn't start the Contenders at 2:22, I'd start them at 2:16 for example. Right then, this race was a great example of how this all works, so we'll watch that and I'll be back to you in a couple of minutes. Right, well I might as well do some impromptu commentary over this as well. I was able to get round the first Dubster because it still comes down to driver skill at the end of the day. I'm not saying that these staggered starts will instantly give you the chance of winning. The idea is that the best driver should end up on top at the end of the race. As we saw another Granger pulling out of one of the driveways there. So this is a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier, and how the faster cars like the Huntley is definitely being held up. I mean, this is not my optimum line, preferred line at all. I lost quite a lot of time going through that corner, and then I can really open up on the straights with some short shifts to power past the slower cars. But it's taken me almost a complete lap to catch up to the next group of battling Dubsters, who are right here. Just ahead of them you've got the Baller LE, who is making slow progress as well. You know, he's going to struggle in the corners, but he's definitely pulling on the straights. Fortunately for me, the Dubsters had an incident there and that allowed me to get through. So imagine that they hadn't, I certainly wouldn't be this close to the Baller as quickly as I am, and that's probably why, with all the incidents, I'm so close to the lead at the start of lap 5. But like I said earlier, the Baller LE on a straight is not the easiest SUV to get around. So I still have my work cut out for me, and while I'm being held up here, on the mini-map you can see another red dot closing up, and that's going to be Deutscher Neymar, who's also driving a Huntley. So one mistake here, and I check back, and Neymar is capitalising on this incident, and he's down my inside. I'm moving around the outside. I thank God Camp Colin had an incident and in the Habanero and was able to hold Neymar up. You have to be so careful when accounting for slower SUVs. Your braking points have to change. It's a great test of driver ability in that regard. How clean can you be? Can you read the car in front's braking ability? Jesus Christ, I completely forgot about Lugal's moment in the Baller there, pulling a 360 on the bridge, almost wiping me out. thankfully, Weimarogko read the situation and he also moved left to give me space. Very, very aware is Weimarogko. Now, throughout all of this, of course, the contenders have been hunting us down, and I think I've cut it out, but I remember looking back during this race and seeing Murphos's red contender at the end of the straight when I was on that same bridge. It must have been on lap 4. But he didn't actually manage to close up by the end of the race. This baller LE was coming back at me though. But Murphos, for a period, was definitely in contention of being a part of this train, but I believe he ran into other issues. So, issues aside, the balancing going on to lap 6 has worked itself out absolutely brilliantly. We've had Smithy maintain the lead in the Habanero up until this moment when I was able to take advantage of both of them. Weimarogko starting behind all of the Dubsters and Grangers and making his way into second, and all the while Lugal in his baller has been mixed in there, along with me and Neymar trying to put pressure on everyone. I was the one that managed to get through, and then the rest of them just come through in a big clutter at the end. So it definitely works, and it provides some of the most thrilling and exciting races, and I highly recommend using this new website created by Pardonius to just experience this. I'm going to leave you with this final example with a bit of music just to show how it works. This isn't using the website. The website's only gone public in the last 24 hours. But before I do that, let me show you this. Let's imagine you're doing Masapi's Mazebank Speedway, because why wouldn't you? It's a fantastic track. Put the length into the calculator. You'll probably be doing 5 laps in, let's say, supers. Now, let's update here. Let's just imagine people take the classic favourites. You know, we've got the Turismo R, there's the Zentorno, and we'll stick a couple of others in there as well, some usual favourites, the Banshee, and then somebody takes the Voltic. Now, the Voltic comes in at Bruffy's testing as a 106, right? But just look at the track map in the lobby before you start. You see this long straight here, and the long straight continuing round the first turn here, and then even after the first hairpin there's quite a lot of high speed before you finally get to the twisty bits, the corners. I would say that the Voltic is going to lose per lap about 3 seconds on those 2 straights. So you can use this little add feature to make your own Voltic. Let's now make the Voltic a 109 lap. And then you submit your times just like you would with everything else, and you have your customised Voltic, which is losing 3 seconds a lap on the straights, with a more competitive chance. But what you can also do with this feature is extend it to driver ability. So let's imagine we're doing IDECA trial run. There's the length. First input the length. We'll probably be doing 5 laps in off-road vehicles, and I tell everyone on the microphone, okay, only brawlers, trophy trucks, and desert raid. Okay, tick them in: brawler, desert raid, and trophy truck. Now, driver ability is a touchy subject because nobody particularly wants to be labelled as being slow, but nevertheless, it is true that certain people are race in, race out, a second, maybe 2 seconds off the pace of the top guys in your lobby. So let's say JLuke11 joins my IDECA trial run lobby and he's never driven the track before and he's chosen a trophy truck. I could say that JLuke11 every lap is going to be 2 seconds slower than everybody else. Likewise, I could categorise the other drivers of the lobby who are using a trophy truck into trophy truck group 1 and trophy truck group 2. Have them line up in the grid that way, read the groups out in that order, hit submit once you're done, and you've got a list of times there that is very, very personalised to the drivers in the lobby. How technical you get with that is completely up to you. You can completely personalise your starting grid with this website, and for me, that's the best thing about it. Right, last thing before I give you the final race. Let's imagine we're on Tom Pearson's Vinewood vibe and you fancy doing some sports classics. Now, in Bruffy's testing, at his peak performance, driving his lines, he's got the Mamba and the Monroe coming in as equals, a 112.6 and a 112.4. Well, anyone that's ever driven the Mamba around a different circuit will probably know, around a circuit like Vinewood Vibe with lots of undulation, bumps and corners, you'll know how hard it is to get a Mamba around that track. So you can customize your own times for difficult cars to drive as well. You might want to consider the Casco in that selection, and then you've got a nice balanced lineup for cars that tend to have oversteer moments, random bump reaction moments. Just be a bit more lenient on more difficult cars to drive. That's it. I shall leave you now with the thrilling conclusion of this sports race. What the hell is going on there with that guy's lag? I'll leave you with this race because it gets very, very intense midway through. People popping up out of nowhere and then a massive collision that wipes everyone out, and you don't quite know how far ahead the really, really slow cars are. So yeah, it's a good one. I will leave you with this.